Hello, I'm Mike of Meal of Dice, and this is the Kerbal Space Program. I have fired up my Sandbox game. Not that you can retell just by looking. Because I decided to today I'm going to play with the Hyperedit mod and kind of show what's possible with it. It's actually kind of fun because I did a play with it after last episode. So now no, I noticed when I started up that I had something ready to go. Uh, I had completely forgotten. I hadn't fired up my Sandbox for ages, so I have no idea what's in here. Except it was this thing, which you may or may not remember if you've been watching for a while. Which is my hovering space rock, which sadly does not have enough delta V to get into orbit. Although if I put on infinite fuel cheats, I could no doubt get this into orbit. Although theoretically, I'm very close to being able to put into orbit, according to this. Because 3,200 is about what you're supposed to be able to. It's supposed to be able to get down to 3,200. It's not very aerodynamic there, so that might cause problems. But anyway, what I wanted to do really was to play with Hyperedit. Because if you want to do testing, if you want to, a lot of these things, or if you want to do testing, you very often have to get an object to a particular place in order to do testing. So if I'm testing my docking skills, for example, or if I want to check if a particular craft will in fact dock with another craft, I actually have to launch it, get it into position, and only then find out. Which I've done before. I've had situations where I spent a lot of time and trouble getting the original aluminium rhinoceros, I think it was, getting it to the orbit of the Mun, and only then discovering that I couldn't really undock my very clever quad port design, and thus couldn't redock it when I needed to at the other end. So this is you can set up all sorts of interesting things. Now let's have an orbit of 10,000 around 100,000 around Kerbal. Interestingly, I have no idea what's going to happen. I should probably launch the docking clamps before I do this. Let's put the docking clamps into their own thing. I should get rid of the docking clamps before I start playing around. But seeing as I'm playing around, don't think it really matters. I think it's kind of funny. So, the docking clamps went away. So there you go. So that gives me the opportunity to put a thing in orbit without having to take all the time and effort to get into orbit and then discover it doesn't work. I can just chuck it in orbit, test it, and then go back a save and see how it goes. So that worked nicely enough. So here's my ridiculous space rock craft in orbit. Now you can set things very specifically if you need a very specific orbit. So if I needed to match an orbit that was given in a contract, for example, I can do that here. I'd have to really know what numbers I care about at this stage. But I can also go to the graphical editor. And the interesting thing, the graphical editor is going a bit bananas because it's got an unnaturally even and exact orbit, which it doesn't quite know what to do. Which means that it's ascend, and also I think its ascending node and descending node are just so exactly to equal to 0 that it doesn't quite know what to do. So if I give it a bit of an inclination, that'll largely sort itself out. So here are my current numbers. I've got an inclination of 2, an eccentricity of 3. Oh, sorry. 3.5 to negative 0.5. So it's. But I can set things. I can set the inclination. I can change the periapsis. Interestingly, you change is the periapsis, and then if you want a different orbit, this is very, very eccentric, very, very uneccentric. So I've got an apoapsis height of 215,000 at this point, and it's so exact. I think it's very upset by not quite knowing where its apoapsis is exactly, because it's more accurate than you could ever actually get in any kind of real life. So I can make it more eccentric by doing that. You notice how much that settles everything down. So you set your periapsis and you set your eccentricity. Which is kind of interesting. There's a few things here I'm not quite sure about. Like, what exactly is epoch? Epoch should be mean anomaly at epoch. This is a way of deciding where you are in the orbit. So I can by twirling this, I'm changing where I am in the orbit. Okay. So am I right at the beginning of the orbit? Am I right at the end of the orbit? Of course, am I halfway through? Argument of periapsis, I think is going to look, I think, very, very similar. But what that's doing is moving the whole orbit around. So if I make it very obviously eccentric, like the argument of periapsis is where does that periapsis end up over Kerbin? So all the way from one end of it to the other. So and so the mean anomaly, where am I in the orbit? Argument periapsis, longitude of ascending node. Again, a similar thing, I think. They're different things. I'm not quite sure what the difference is between them. I'd have to know a little bit more about orbital mechanics to do this. Now let's give myself a bit more periapsis. I'm going to turn my eccentricity down again. The other fun thing is that this periapsis slider, is literally between as low as you can go without actually crashing into the surface. So, sorry, crashing into the atmosphere. So, at the lowest, my periapsis is just over 70K. But I can bring it up to essentially, this is the sphere of influence of Kerbin. And if I try and put the eccentricity up at all, I immediately, I'm outside Kerbin's orbit. And so I can do things like I kind of have to do that if I want to do mad things like take myself to Joule, because there's lots of orbits of Kerbin that would actually be outside the surface of Joule. So yeah, here I am, right. So this is, if I put myself as low as I can go around Joule, which is 201 kilometers, and then I go back and then I put myself back around Kerbin. That's the relative, that's the size. That kind of gives you an idea of how Joule's not that big. I would have thought Joule would be bigger, actually. That's interesting. Ooh. Joule's not as big as I thought it would be. Right. What information can I get about? There we go. Equator rate is 600 kilometers. Let's go back to, let's go back to Joule. Oh, I see. I focused. I, I was still focused on Kerbal. um, its radius is only 6,000 kilometers. I mean, its atmosphere height is 200,000. So that's really interesting, actually. Joule is not as big as I would have expected. I don't think it's as big as Jupiter is compared to Earth. I don't think, anyway. But it does have a ridiculous sphere of influence. That's just I can go that far out, which is quite a ways. 2.3. I think it's anyway. It's a big number. It's either 2.3 megameters or it's 2,000. That's a lot. Yeah, it's 2.3 million meters. So that's 327,000 kilometers. That's how far you are around. So you can do that, and you can play with the inclination, eccentricity, as I believe I mentioned. Whoosh, really ridiculous. Destination position was above the sphere of influence, so that's about as far, that's as eccentric an orbit I can get before it starts complaining about things. Where am I about the orbit? Where exactly the orbit is around. Let's see. If you're very eccentric, if you're inclined, longitude of the ascending node and argument of periapsis don't do quite the same thing. So that's essentially the latitude and longitude. Ooh, that's interesting. We'll come here, you. So that's spinning around. You can see where that periapsis is going around that way, whereas the argument of periapsis is going around the other way. Ooh, isn't that interesting? But there are things you can do as well. You can just set a straight velocity. Although heaven only knows, if I just make up numbers at this point, I'm probably going to break things. Let's put ourselves back to the periapsis. That's not what I meant to do. That's not what I meant to do. This is what I meant to do. Right, so that's me at the dual periapsis, give or take. I've just left it, I think. And so I can now actually decide to give myself a particular velocity in the prograde direction, which at the moment is 9,023. But if I take myself down to, say, 7,000, prograde, then I shoot off into space. That's interesting. I think I just added it instead of. I thought I was going to set it directly, but I think I just added it. And I set it into. Let's go prograde again. Yeah, it's just adding it. Okay, so let's take away 1400 prograde. What is it? Oh, yeah, okay. I didn't want to take 14. I want to take it. There we go. Now I'm going to crash into the ground. Let's bring that up. There we go. So you can play around with these things and just give yourself a velocity that you need at a particular moment. So what I wanted to do was take my velocity down So I want to take away, let's take away 1,000. And that changes my orbit, so I can set myself a specific velocity if I want. The rendezvous one I might not be able to do. Oh, maybe. Because I don't have other, I don't have other things available. In my sandbox, I don't have very much in the way of things that kind of lying around. But I can also I can just give myself a rendezvous with a particular asteroid. Right. The lead time of 1. I have no idea what that lead time means. So I set that as. Oh, okay. I might not be able to track it because. Let's go to the Space Center. No, let's view. Just try it this way: view and tracking station, because I don't have anything in the tracking station in a minute. So as you can see, I've not been to the tracking station in the Sandbox. It's going, here you go. Welcome to the tracking station. Right, so we're going to track that object now. So now I can go back to Space Rock. There we go. And I can go. Where's it gone? I can't use that to search for asteroids. Oh, there we go. What are you? Ah, there we go. Now I've targeted it. Oh, there it is. I don't know why I couldn't get it before. Yeah, so that's 9 kilometers away. And if I could move this thing, which I can't, because of the way I've constructed it, it has absolutely no ability to. I think it's only through vectored thrust that it's able to turn it all. I believe I think I have 0 torque. But anyway, it's put me very close to being able to so I could test my maneuver, my things like that. I can, get myself in a position where I'm about to where I am about to encounter something, and thus. If I need to test various bits and pieces, I can do that. This is actually, and you notice my target, I have zero velocity compared to the target. So it is put myself in that exact kind of lead time. So let's try. What happens if I just do this? 227. There you go. I'm much closer now. Hold again. 0.5, 0.125. Look at that. Very big thing. So I can just gradually get closer and closer if I want to do it that way. How neat is this? So that's the orbit editor. That allows you to do all sorts of interesting things and test things. Essentially, this is a huge, big cheat editor. Okay? I can also do weird things to planets, which I'm not sure I want to do. But I can play with the gravity, weather. Look at all this stuff I can do. not going to do any of this. That really frightens me. That seems like a thing I can completely break everything. MISC tools. Oh yeah, I've seen that. You can change what energy. Oh, you can see electric charge going. What am I spending electric charge on this thing? That's interesting. I can align SMAs. Interesting. I can give myself a boost. Control B. Give myself a boost button of 10. Oh, look at that. What a silly thing. So there you go. That's kind of a thing about the things you can do with Kerbal Space Program. I'm landing. I don't know what's happening. Don't know where I am at the minute. I'm hit the landing thing, and I actually don't know where I'm going to end up. Oh look, my orbit has gone mad. So it's now giving me my orbit compared to. Oh, so it's gradually moving me to Kerbal, I think, and it's done crazy things to my orbit. Where's Kerbal gone? There's Ike. Where has Kerbal gone? I have no idea where I am at the minute. So anyway, while I'm trying to get myself onto Kerbal, and Lord alone knows what's happening, I'm going to say thanks very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed me playing around with Hyperedit. To standard Hyperedit, it's a mod you can get on CCAN, which is what I used to do on my mods. So if you do modding at all in Kerbal Space Program, I really recommend CCAN. Because it's really easy to play with. It enables you to do all sorts of interesting things, and it's basically a full-on cheat editor, which I don't particularly feel like using for cheating, but I would quite like to use it for various other things, like basically testing, getting things to the mun, so I can get things there. Oop, that's not what I wanted to do. There we go, it's better. And anyway, so thanks so much for watching. Hit like and subscribe if you're enjoying these videos. This is apparently where I'm landing, in the middle of the ocean. Come visit Neil Love Dice at neillovedice.com. We're also on Facebook and Twitter. You can find us there. And until next time, reach for the stars.